Hello! The Longlist for the International Booker Prize is going to be announced later this month, so I thought I would throw my hat in the ring and make some predictions for what I'm hoping might be listed. And if you don't know, this is an award which celebrates the best fiction which has been translated into English and published in the UK or Ireland in the past year. And I think this might be a really great year for the prize for a couple of reasons, because firstly, there have been so many excellent translated books that have come out in the past year. I've limited myself to just 13 picks because that's generally the amount that's on the long list, and I've kind of half picked books that I've read and loved, and the other half are books that I'm really keen to read and which I think sound so great. But also, there's a really excellent judging panel for this year's award, which is chaired by everyone's favorite literary daddy, Max Porter. At least I wish he was my literary daddy. I wish he was my daddy. But anyway, on to some predictions. But I would love to hear if there are any books that you're hoping or expecting will be on the long list. So let me know about that in the comments below. So the very first novel is a book that I just read with my online book club of The Empusium by Olga Tokarczuk. Now, of course, she is a former winner of this prize and a winner of the Nobel Prize. So is a very likely candidate. But this is also such a fascinating and creepy book. There's so much to say about it. So it follows a young Polish man who's suffering from tuberculosis. It's early in the 1900s, before the beginning of World War I, and he goes to stay in a health resort high up in the mountains and stays in a gentleman's lodging where he has many extended conversations with these men who come from different political and philosophical ideologies and who are debating about a lot of big ideas. And so it follows his journey, but also it's so creative how she narrates this story that the narrative voice switches back and forth to following this young Pole, but also there's this kind of creepy collective voice that's kind of watching from the cracks and in the walls and in nature, and there are many strange goings on in this village, and people who are dying that are found dismembered in the forest. So it's very creepy, but even more creepy is that the men in their extended conversations, they frequently lapse into horribly misogynistic views, and once you discover where those views come from, it's even more horrific. So following his plight is really heartrending, and this is obviously inspired by Thomas Mann's giant novel The Magic Mountain, which I also just read very recently. I would say this is not at all necessary to read this before getting to the Empusium, because it's really its own weird beast. Speaking of weird beasts, the big book that I'm predicting will not only be listed for this prize, but actually win it, is Solenoid by Mircea Cartarescu, the great Romanian author. And this giant, surreal and deeply thoughtful and very inward-looking novel is so fascinating. I read it a couple of years ago because I purchased it when I think it came out in the US, but it was brought out in some UK bookshops. So I actually bought this in foils in London, but I think it was just like an import. But it was actually published here in the UK last summer. So I think that makes it eligible for this year's prize, and it is such a powerful novel that's really stuck with me, and honestly one of the best books that I've read in recent years. So I think it's an incredible feat. It's really difficult to describe everything that it's about. It follows a teacher who goes on a kind of surreal journey as he goes through these kind of portals of experience, and it looks at collective national history, but also the the crisis of being and of existence and all of these like big philosophical questions, but it handles it in a really fluid and hypnotic way, and it is so beautifully written with these prose that are so layered that I just wanted to like stop and appreciate each sentence, even though it is such a giant novel. Clean by Alia Trabucco Zeran, and this is a Chilean novel that is written in such a way, like the voice in this novel immediately gripped me, and I wanted and needed to know what was going to happen in this very tense story and situation, but also the charisma of this voice, completely seized me. So it follows a woman who's been locked in a room, and we know that the girl that she has been minding has died, and so there's a whole mystery surrounding this. But she's a nanny and a domestic servant and a housekeeper, and we follow her as she works for this well-to-do family and cares for their very troublesome child, and following her journey and voice and her process of logic, I think is so fascinating. So it works both as a thriller, but also looking at larger political and social and economic inequalities in a country. Pink Slime by Fernanda Trias, and this is like both a kind of environmental dystopian novel, but it's much more intimate account following a woman who's in a point of crisis and trying to decide where she wants to live and where she wants to go in her life, because the seas have been polluted, and there are these like dangerous winds out, and which has completely decimated the food supply, and so the general population has to revert to primarily consuming this disgusting pink slime material, which is mass produced by the government. So it's a very stripped down existence, and she's one of the few remaining people staying in this area, which has become very environmentally dangerous, and partly because she's there caring for this very troubled boy who has a kind of condition which means that he obsessively consumes everything and finds it really difficult to navigate in the world, and it's her loyalty to caring for this boy that she's been charged with looking after, but also visiting a man that a former partner of hers in the hospital, who's been afflicted by the plague and who's been kind of kept as a kind of test subject. And so there's this larger, very like creepy atmosphere that's going on, but also it follows her inward journey, trying to find hope and meaning in the world still. And it's written in such a poetic and powerful way. Bad Habit by Alana S. Portero. And this is a coming of age story following a trans girl who comes from a working class family, and follows her in her move to Madrid in making connections with the queer community, but also the challenges she encounters, and the surprising connections and friendships she makes along the way. And I found this novel like to be filled with so much heart and humor and such a great sense of community that I just loved this story. Stay With Me by Hanne Orstavik, and this is a Norwegian novel that really took me by surprise, because when I started reading it, I thought I'm really not sure about the structure of this or whether it's working, but as it went on, it grew to feel increasingly impactful, and I found it really meaningful. So it follows a woman who's a writer and gets involved in this very difficult relationship, and she is also writing a novel about a woman who has just moved to America and who's just lost her husband. So it's this kind of dual narrative, and it switches back and forth between them. And I thought at first, like, I'm really not sure like why we're moving between these two different narratives. But as it goes on, it's this really probing examination about how we long for love and affection, and in a lot of ways we kind of can't accept this in ourselves, of people that give it to us, or how we get in kind of bad relationships that we know aren't good for us, but we still cling to them anyway. And so it's looking at all of the complexities of love and self-acceptance in a really moving way. Now on to the books that I haven't read, but which I'm really eager to read, and I'm kind of hoping that they'll be listed to give me an extra bit of encouragement to get to them sooner rather than later. So first there is a very obvious choice of We Do Not Part, the new novel by Han Kang, who just won the Nobel Prize for Literature last year, and she was also the very first winner of the International Booker Prize in this iteration. There was a form of the International Booker Prize before there was this yearly prize. But anyway, The Vegetarian was the very first winner of that. And this novel sounds really powerful, following a woman who goes to stay with a friend who's been injured and is in hospital, and that friend entreats the central character to go to her home to care for her bird, which has been left there. But while she's there, she discovers things both personally about the past and her friend's past, but also the larger social history, and an instance of a massacre which occurred in the local area, and so is looking at the impact and continuing relevance of these histories. It's also set during winter time, during a big snowstorm, so I think it'll be a really atmospheric thing to read at this time of year. And just recently I reread Han Kang's novel Human Acts, which was incredibly powerful, and I've heard that this new novel is equally so. And also I really like the inside swirly cover of this. What I Know About You by Eric Chacour, and this novel begins in the 1980s in Cairo with a man who's become a doctor, and he's married, so feels like he's really settled down, but then he meets a young man that he really falls for, and that sets him on a new journey of self-discovery and romance, and it continues to follow him as he's moved to a different part of the world and is facing new challenges. And I've heard such great things about this book, and I'm going to be reading it really soon with my in-person book club. Herscht 07769 by Laszlo Krasznahorkai, who's a Hungarian author, and this novel is written in one long single sentence, and it's exploring issues to do with the rise of the far right and neo-Nazis in Germany. So very serious subject matter, but it also includes a lot about physics and Bach, and sounds like a wild ride. I had actually asked for this book for Christmas, but wasn't given it. I guess it wasn't a very festive sounding book that anyone wanted to give me, but it's one that I'm really keen to read. May Our Joy Endure by Kev Lambert, and this is translated from the French, and it takes place in Montreal, following a woman who's a very successful architect who has unleashed this plan for a major development that's funded by a tech company, but then she comes up against anti-gentrification protesters, and it's looking at the big complexity of giant moneyed corporations coming in and taking over neighborhoods, and so about this clash between different levels of society. A Sunny Place for Shady People by Mariana Enriquez, the Argentinian author who creates this really creative blend of kind of literary horror, which is very surreal and haunting, but also deals with a lot of real-world issues. And I've had mixed feelings about the fiction I've read by her in the past, but someone in my book group was telling me how powerful she found these stories. So they've been ones that I've been really wanting to read. The Book of Disappearance by Ibtissam Azem, and this novel follows friends and neighbors, one of whom is Palestinian and one is a liberal Zionist named Ariel. And one morning, Ariel wakes up to discover that all of the Palestinians have vanished, and so it pursues this story and this question of the big political divisions in the Middle East. And this sounds like an incredibly topical and important novel, especially because it's looking at both sides of the issue and considering the real impact of if this were to occur, as it's been discussed in recent political dialogue, that this is something which should actually happen. So it's a book that I want to read really soon, like regardless if it's listed for a prize or not. And my final prediction is The Cafe with No Name by Robert Seathaler. And this story follows a man in Vienna who's always dreamed of opening a cafe, and he finally does so, and he hires someone to work there with him, and it records their encounters with the many different people who come in and out of this cafe, which sounds very whimsical, but the way that Robert Seathaler writes, I've read his previous novel, A Whole Life, which was also listed for the International Booker Prize, and it's so profound how he writes about the human experience and the trajectory of life and the choices we make or don't make over the course of our lives. And I think he's an incredible author. So it'll be really exciting to see if any of these books are listed for the actual prize later this month. But I would love to hear if you've read any of these books, or if you're interested in reading them now after hearing me talk about them, or if you have any other predictions of your own, because there are so many other books that I was considering that might be listed for this prize, and so many possibilities, and it's just fun to speculate about them and give another opportunity to shout about some books that we've read recently and loved. So I'll looking forward to chatting with you in the comments below, but I hope you're doing well and reading good things, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.